Dude, I felt driving back from the theater tonight.
That is the thing that makes Mad Max the best franchise, is because you get behind the wheel after watching a Mad Max
Someone's
movie,
about to die on the road.
and you were like, I'm on the Fury Road right now.
Driving down the 405, dude, and I was like,
You're driving down the 405, you're going 75 and a 65, dude. You're putting your blinkers on, but you're using your full hand to put the blinker on. It's like, I'm turning left.
You don't have a stick shift, but like if you needed to reverse, and then I very safely reversed.
Yeah. And you look behind you. If anything, that's the review right there. You got out of the movie and you're speeding.
We're back, and today we're going to be talking about Furiosa. Welcome to our channel. We do comedy, YouTube, film reviews with a cat.
Yeah, a cat does show up sometimes.
If you like the cat, it's there all the time. If you don't, then
We're getting rid of it today.
It's in the trash. If you don't like the cat, it's in the trash.
Leading up to this movie, it almost was like it wouldn't register as a real thing until like this week. You know, after the first Mad Max came out, it's like, when's the next one coming out? Right away, they're like, oh, we are going to drop another movie. It's going to be a Furiosa movie. It's going to come out next year. And we're like, in 2016, we're like, yeah, sweet.
Yeah, sweet.
like okay, sure, soon.
She's eating the antenna.
And then more years go by, and like you still kind of hear about it. It's like, is that even a thing? You look up on IMDb, and it's like in development. It's like, really? Like, are we?
Apparently, it's still happening.
Miller's still gonna do this? Like,
Yeah. He's like 80 years old.
He's like, well, he's 10 years older than he made. Mad Max.
He was old with it. Then Fury Road.
A lot of the hype died along the way. And it's not like
it's been 9 years.
I still love Fury Road. I think Fury Road's still a masterpiece and
Fury
one of the
Road
best
has
movies
endured for
of the past several decades. So good. Where was I going with that? I was losing my.
So you don't want me to bring up your age, but then you have dementia on camera, and I'm not supposed to like.
You ever see the film Mad Max Fury Road? No, but like it's not that the hype was. I was almost trained to not believe that this movie existed.
That's fair.
So until like literally when Kevin bought the tickets, I was like, didn't think about it. I was like, oh yeah, I'll see that movie. It's gonna be sweet, whatever. And then like today and the day before, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna see a new Mad Max movie directed by George Miller, which a lot of people were not like excited about. I felt like, not that they were like, oh, boo George Miller. They're just
He's
like,
an 80-year-old man.
He's an 80-year-old man.
Yeah.
And I was like, he was an old man when he made the first one.
Yeah.
And there's been nothing to prove him wrong.
He hasn't made Happy Feet 4.
Yeah.
and-
Happy 3.
Yeah.
I was in a similar state, actually. I was like, are we ever going to get that Furiosa movie? Like, they've been talking about it forever, and they talked about doing another Mad Max after that, too. And I was like, I just want something. Just give me something. I want to go back to Fury Road. I want to go back to that world again.
They announced Anya Taylor-Joy's going to be Furiosa, and I was like, perfect fit.
Yeah.
Anya Taylor-Joy's always good.
Yeah, she's great. I don't know if it'll live up to Fury Road, because it's just, at this point, it's been cemented over 9 years.
I threw that
to just
idea out the window. I was like,
to just be uncomparable.
I won't compare the two.
But I was like,
we probably will.
I fully intend to.
The worst it'll be is
Super entertaining.
super entertaining.
Yeah.
So that's what I went in thinking.
I don't know if I wanted a Furiosa prequel movie. I know I
needed one.
I was when that was announced, I was like, you know what, I'm on board for whatever they're gonna do, but I'm like, that doesn't sound like the most enticing idea to me.
Can you make a Mad Max movie without Mad Max?
Yeah.
A lot of people were asking that same question.
I thought it was really good.
Very brave.
Very brave. We can't do the brave bit again, dude. You can't always be brave.
Oh,
when it's a
I
good
guess,
movie.
yeah, Dune, we were brave. We can be brave more than once, but it's a little less brave.
We're bold.
We're bold this time. we can't do the brave bit twice. We're bold this time.
bold.
This time we're bold. That was a very bold move, Kevin.
Very bold.
God, well, thank you.
I'm going to echo that. I also really enjoyed it within the first, like, 5 minutes. It's such a dangerous scenario that they're opening up in, because it's like the same way that Wonder Woman 1984 opens up. You have protagonist as a little kid, and I was like, all right.
And they stay as the little kid for like at least 45 minutes.
And within 5 minutes, I was like, oh no, this is fucking badass. Yeah. This is so sweet. Oh, her mom's badass too? Of course she's badass.
Everyone is badass in this universe.
Everyone's badass in this universe.
If you're not badass, you're dead.
You're dead. That's it.
I was just like completely gripped the entire time. Even though you know like where things are going, but you're still like kind of on the edge of your seat.
Ends that the movie like puts up.
There's enough new characters and like, that person's probably not going to survive to the end of this, but you don't know exactly what's going to happen to them. without any spoilers, I really enjoyed it.
I thought this movie was awesome.
Oh,
I was
golden.
in love with it by like, actually, you missed like one of the best shots, if not the best shots in the movie when you got up.
Oh,
the first time.
dude.
You saw how they go to Gastown or whatever
Yeah.
and they're like faking that whole thing. There's the part where they actually get the rig or whatever.
Yeah,
what do they call the big old
war
the
rig?
war rig?
War rigs.
They literally just ripped that shot from Barry. Like
You just see it all happen.
Chris
from really
Hemsworth is
far
just
away.
is just in frame, and then just far away in the distance you see like a whole Mad Max like battle
like
sequence.
you see Fury Road
like
from really
really far away, and it's like really funny looking.
And you
Because
just-
it's like fire, like
they go up to the front, burn the driver. It screeches to a halt. Yeah, we got
Chris Hemsworth's
it.
just watching the whole
Because
thing.
I was just watching the whole thing.
It's a great shot. Around then, I was like, this movie is amazing.
Yeah, no, yeah. When that shot happened, I was like, that was sweet.
And there's so many moments before
like-
that were amazing too.
Every single action set piece is fantastic. Like, there's not a single dud as far as like sequences of action go.
The pacing of the action sequences in Fury Road is really hype, like boom, 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 cut,
Constant,
cut.
yeah.
It's constantly moving, and like, and this one hangs on a lot of shots. It's just like, oh, this is sweeping over to this person's lifting off on a parasail and it's swooping around. And
Each action set piece is completely different from the last. Like, there might be like, oh yeah, they had like this one is the one where they fly, and it's
Yeah.
like that's completely different from the ones where there's motorcycles. And you know, that's even saying that out loud, it sounds a little silly. Like, how much does that change? But it actually changes
changes
a
a
lot
lot, yeah.
in the
Changes a lot.
pacing of how an action scene goes.
And it's crazy how, like, that one where they're flying around, by the end of it, I was like, how was that so easy to understand?
Yeah.
As an audience. So much crazy stuff kept
But you're able
happening.
to follow
But, like,
every-
it is so simple to follow. You know exactly what every character's doing, you know exactly what the bad guys and the good guys are doing.
It's so
And
simple.
even like non-verbal communication, like there's a part where a character falls under the rig and then sees the main character, and they just have like one little nod. They know exactly kind of what they're saying, and the audience also knows exactly what they're saying.
Yeah, all the Mad Max movies has this, like,
Yeah.
that nailed, where, like,
Yeah.
you see exactly what the character's thinking in a very quick moment.
They don't have
Yeah.
to say it out loud.
You know, there's a part where Furiosa, like, she goes one direction, then you see in her face, like, okay, no, she's made a different decision. She's gonna
Yeah.
do something else, and she does something else.
Yeah.
It's not even that they're awesome. They are awesome in a different way than Fury Road.
Yes.
Which I was blown away by. I was like,
Yes.
I wanted more Fury Road, and then I realized the movie's like, no, you don't. You want something new, but
you
you
want
want it to be
something
Mad
different.
Max still. A lot of sequels, you're like, oh, you get kind of the same thing, and they kind of all meld together in your
After a
head. And
while.
with this, it's like, oh, you get a different experience from each Mad Max movie.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's pretty consistent still. Like, even with this one.
Yeah,
This is a
even with
different
this one,
experience
yeah.
than Fury Road.
Fury Road has a very kind of basic plot. This one has like a larger, grander plot where it's kind of going over the entire adult or young adult life of a character, as opposed to just being like, here's one kind of really confined event.
Yeah. Moves almost just as fast, too, though.
I think I was way easier to sell on the movie. I knew I loved it the second they flipped the guy upside down and they were like, draw a map, draw a map.
Yeah, no, that wasn't like that shot I was talking about wasn't like the moment. Like, there was a lot of moments before that. Like, the moment I realized the crux of that first action sequence when she's following them and like she has to reload her gasoline and stuff like that,
Yes.
repair her bike and
That-
everything. All
that
that was
was
great.
so
It's just like, wow, this
cool.
is like a long haul.
Yeah.
Because it's a big, long chase scene. We made the comparison to like Wonder Woman 84, where it's like, oh, we're going to spend this really long, like 10, 15, 20-minute scene of young main character.
Protagonist.
Yeah. It's almost a movie in and of itself. It's like a mini Fury Road. Like, they kind of get, they're like, all right, we're going to do one scene where it's basically just a long, extensive chase scene, but it's one long scene.
And it's only between a few characters.
And immediately I was like, you've already scratched my itch. Like, this,
Yeah.
this is...
You already got me. And they introduce a lot of the main running characters really well. They introduce Chris Hemsworth really well in that
Yes.
first act. They set up the stakes really well. I feel like I have very little to complain about this movie.
Oh yeah, no, honestly, like the only thing it fares against is Fury Road by comparison. And we said it's so different from it, but it is literally the only thing remotely close to it that you can compare this movie to.
Yeah. Well, it's still Mad Max. That's the thing that is cool about these movies, and you actually don't need Max in the movie. You just are in that world, and you know what the vibe is. These people are crazy. It's not just the apocalypse. These people are crazy. They're obsessed with gasoline.
It's Australian apocalypse. I was
I
thinking-
was more convinced in this movie than any of the other ones that like this might
it's
just
only
it's
Australia.
literally
Yes.
just Australia.
Yeah, well, they start with the globe, and it's like, there's ocean still.
The rest of it's green.
There's ocean still. There's green.
And then it zooms in on the brown wasteland of Australia.
Yeah, because the rest of the world's like, you know, maybe they tried sending some people down there, and they're like, no, they're animals down there.
Just leave them
Just
there.
leave them.
They like
They're-
it.
They're enjoying
Just
it.
leave. They love it. They love it.
They don't even speak English properly
They
anymore.
talk about
They're
how
insane.
much they love bullets and gasoline. That's all they care about.
They have an entire town called Gastown.
Gastown and Bullet Farm.
They have 4 different towns, and they all have a main resource, and they just trade amongst them.
And they just trade amongst them. They're like animals.
That was a cool thing to also kind of dive deeper into.
Like the way the economy kind of works.
Like, oh, Gastown, Bullet Town were like mentioned in Fury Road.
It world builds in a way where it's like it adds more. It's not like changing details. It's like, oh no, this is all consistent. Like if you watch, I was thinking about this a lot. Like I feel like this only adds to Fury Road. I really want to rewatch Fury Road, but I was like, everything with Furiosa's character feels 100% consistent. There's no like mental gymnastics of like, oh, now this kind of changes about it.
This doesn't feel like the same person. Or whatever.
Yeah, if everything feels 100% consistent and it only adds layers of depth as opposed to like changing things or making things
Or retconning.
retconning things.
And a lot of prequels and sequels will try to do that, and like you ultimately feel like, I didn't want to know any of that.
Yeah.
Like, but this movie doesn't do that.
No, I was like, oh, the green place now. That shot where she's crying about it, you're like, oh, I can see why she was sad about losing that.
That was
like,
it.
Like
not
she
only
protected it her entire life.
her mom died not giving up where it was.
And now it's just nothing.
Like literally while her mom was dying, I was like, this is so sad because you know that place is not there by the time Fury Road starts.
Yeah, and that I did have some worry about that because I was like, well, the thing with prequels is you know where it goes.
You know where it goes. Yeah.
But it doesn't focus too much on just her journey back home.
Yeah.
It does, like, that is definitely a big part of her character, but it's also like a big revenge story.
She has many like opportunities to go back home, but she chooses to go after Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah.
To get him back. Before eventually that fruit pays off, that seed eventually grows into.
One thing I think is funny about this franchise is they're just kind of playing with the idea that like the concept of what Max is almost like more of an archetype rather than like a specific person.
The mad part is the important part.
Well, I even like they just have Mad Max is in this movie if like in reality. Like there is a character that is just Mad Max, and like you see him and you're like his outfit is very similar to Mad Max's.
He's got the shoulder pad.
And then they do a shot.
He talks a little normal.
There's a shot where he's walking down the street, and it looks almost exactly like the poster
Road
from Road Warrior.
And it's someone that she has a connection with in the movie, so then inevitably, when she has that connection with Max in Fury Road, you're like, oh, he reminds her of that guy.
And he's the road warrior, or he's a road
He
warrior.
teaches her how to be a road warrior. He gives her a shotgun, a double-barreled sawed-off shotgun.
Yeah, there's the part where the guy gives him the double-barrel shotgun and here's your boomstick. And I was like, is that just Mad Max? Am I missing something? They're gonna get hit on the head later, and they're both gonna forget.
They're both gonna forget, and they get split up.
This movie also nailed heart. There's a little romance in this movie. It's not like super overt, like it's not a love story by any means, but there is a relationship that is slightly romantic. I thought that added a lot of heart.
Yeah.
It felt organic. It didn't feel forced.
The Mad Max universe, despite being gross and like wild, does feel like it has like a twinge of heart in it. Yeah, it's kind of hard to describe, but like the fact that they just kind of leave out the gross, unfun stuff about the apocalypse that there would be. Like in Immortan Joe, when he takes Furiosa at the towards the beginning, he's like, "Oh, once you're of age, you'll be one of my wives."
Yeah, I
like
leaned
so
over-
he's not gonna bang a child.
Yeah, well, one of his son wanted to bang a child.
His son wanted to bang.
But,
a child.
like,
Well, his
I-
son wanted to pet her hair.
I leaned over to Sam Slade and I made a joke because she's being pulled between the two, like, you know, main guys that are part of this conflict. It's Immortan Joe and then Dementis. She's like, oh, yeah, which one do I go with? Immortan Joe's like, oh, you can come home and, you know, come home with me and be my sex slave. And then Chris Hemsworth is like, no, come with me. You can be my regular slave.
That I take
My
blood
regular
from.
slave.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, this place seems like it's big enough to where I can slip through the cracks.
This one also has water.
Also, Immortan Joe didn't kill her mom. I also love that I kind of feel like the decision to kill Dementis is made almost immediately after she sees her mom killed. Like there's that scene where they're like ripping the people apart and they're on the motorcycles and he's like, here, take my teddy bear, and she doesn't say anything. She's just locked eye contact with him. And I'm like, yep, she's decided that she's gonna kill him.
She's gonna murder him. Like,
That's not non-verbal communication.
This is the most gory of the Mad Max movies.
I was thinking about that too. Like
Pretty
a lot of the
gnarly.
Mad Max movies are pretty reserved. Like even though they don't show a bunch of violence, but like it's super implied. This one implies a lot, but also shows.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like it's super gory, but it's also pretty reserved. Like the gore is used as like emphasis. It's never like
look
how crazy this
yeah,
is.
like it's not gratuitous. There is gore because there would be in the situation, but it's not like, oh, we're gonna like zoom in and like really focus on how painful it is. Like she gets her arm off and you see that, But it's not like, like a lot of the Saw movies will end
Yeah.
up like you get a shot of the close-up of this
Angle,
thing
angle,
getting
angle,
ripped off.
angle,
Yeah, and it's
yeah.
really trying to emphasize how painful it is and make it like visually painful for the audience. And it doesn't do that despite having a lot of gore in it.
That scene where I won't describe it in detail, when she loses her hand. Spoiler alert, because she
She
doesn't have a
does
hand in Fury
lose
Road.
her hand, yeah.
That scene was so fucking awesome.
And the moment they have the setup for that happening, I was like, oh, if this happens, it's gonna be so awesome.
It's gonna be sweet, and then it did. You're like,
happen.
that was
Sweet,
great.
That was awesome.
I will say I thought it slowed down in the third act. I think the strongest parts of the movie were the beginning and then up until she loses her arm.
There's a big chunk of the movie where Chris Hemsworth isn't in it. It kind of has a dip there because like Chris Hemsworth is such an entertaining
'Cause
part of the
he's
movie,
great.
and like you're with him for so long.
Yeah.
And him being out of the movie for a decent amount of time kind of slows that aspect of the pacing down. And because it's long,
I have some spoiler complaints. I'll say non-spoilers that I feel like the third act is a little weaker than I wanted it to be, but overall, like, it didn't significantly bring down how much I enjoyed it.
If you're even remotely a fan of Fury Road, absolutely check it out. If you eat poop and you thought that, Fury Road should have had a better story,
more story.
This movie has more story. It takes what Fury Road isn't, and it's like, okay, well, what can we do? And it does that very well. I will say I prefer Fury Road personally, but I could see somebody liking
Preferring
both
this one.
and like, that's more my thing. It's kind of like X and Pearl. It's like, man, they're both so good. But different people might prefer one versus the other, like depending on what kind of thing you like.
I don't know if I can say which one I prefer as of right now. Like, not that I am like that unsure about it necessarily. I'd want
it's hard to
to
see.
watch
It's
both.
hard to say
Yeah.
because I've been watching Fury Road for so long.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't really have much negative to say about it.
So that'd be a really high score.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like maybe.
Yeah, it's out of 12.
It's definitely an 8 out of 10.
fair and balanced.
Yeah, I think this movie's sweet. Definitely go see it. See it in the theater. Action.
Movies are back. Like
Movies are
I
back.
had this thought when I was speeding home, unsafely driving.
I'm turning left.
yeah,
Movies are back.
2020, 2021, and even 22 a little bit. It was kind of like movies were in this weird slump because COVID killed movies for a little bit, and then you have some movies where it's like, oh, movies are kind of back, and then last year it felt like movies were really back. Now, like
Every year's gotten better since
I was kind of
2020s.
worried, like, oh, well, was it just like 2023 was just a really good year? But this was like, okay, we've had multiple good movies this year already. This movie's fucking fantastic. Movies are just back.
Movies
like,
are back. And this year doesn't have a stupid Marvel movie.
It's just got one.
I really liked it. It's just I really have very little to complain about. We'll get to that, but every sort of doubt I had as the movie was going on, I was like, oh man, am I really going to connect to Furiosa as a character? She's kind of not doing much. And it's a revenge story. I already know where she's going. By the end, I'm like, I'm totally invested in this character again.
Yeah.
George Miller really using all the state-of-the-art technology and effects and techniques that.
and also just throwing stuntmen every
Oh,
which
there's
way.
some real stuff, like
Yeah.
old school stunts happening where people are flipping off of bikes and stuff, and I'm like, that guy's real.
That's real.
I think we're thinking of one in particular.
Yeah, there's one that he just flies at the camera. I'm like that.
I was like, that's a real man on a real bike
Like
with a real
like
background.
the that classic story of the Road Warrior stuntman. Did you ever hear that story
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
they're like, you're gonna prepare for surgery, so don't eat for 24 hours. We're gonna set up a doctor's appointment for you after the stunt.
Oh my God.
And you're gonna do the stunt, and then if we need to rush you to the hospital, everything's ready for you.
Everything's ready.
and you're ready to go into surgery. But yeah, I would easily give it a 12 out of 12.
Wow.
12 out of 12.
Well, movies are back.
Movies are
12
back.
out of 12. When was the last time we had a fucking 12 out of 12?
Last time I did a review.
Wow, really great film. Really, really well done action set pieces. And this is why I don't want to jump in and just say like I prefer Fury Road just because I've loved that one forever. I think there are probably action set pieces in this movie that are as high as some of the action set pieces in Fury Road. All of my doubts were like just completely erased by the halfway point. I really enjoyed the movie. Some problems, but fucking it's a 12 out of 12, baby.
That's a positive score.
Cinema's back.
They could have just pulled out a butt and farted in front of the camera in the third act, and I would have been like, well, the first two acts were fucking great. I don't give a shit. So spoiler time.
Spoilers and gripes.
So my main gripe is literally, so she comes back, she loses her arm, all that's sweet. She gets to the Citadel, and that scene is also great because she's like, she's not at Gastown, he's at Bullet Town. And the son has the greatest line. The son has the greatest line in the entire movie. He's like, we could go with the stupid bitch plan, or we could go with the heroic plan.
And go where they absolutely aren't.
We go with her plan and fall into his mind games, or we go to Gastown.
I think the narrative has this weird turn after that because Morton Joe's like, oh, I'm going to make them think that we're going to Gastown, but we're really not. And then instead of getting like some action set piece, the narrator is just like, and then war happened.
Yeah, they kind of pass over. Almost like the movie was running out of money.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird.
And then you get a couple flashes, and it's like, and the Citadel's winning, don't worry. And then a battle happened, but also Furiosa, during that time, she was building an arm for herself. Okay, and we're caught up. Okay.
I almost could see it being like they'll have an extended cut with action sequences in there, and they were just kind of like, dude, how many cars are you going to blow up in this goddamn
hour movie?
George Miller cut some of it out.
But I think it ends up hurting the finale of the movie because by the time the narration ends and Furiosa's ready to go and like find the Chris Hemsworth, he's already kind of lost the war. Like he's running away. He just lost this major battle. They're like literally the two brothers are like, he's a coward. He loses battles and then he runs away. He's lost. Like he doesn't even have his dogs anymore, and he's just kind of like scurrying away. And I was like, this is all great. I wish we'd gotten to see him lose this, and
or at least just the final cry of that battle. You know what I mean? As kind of a pseudo climax.
The end of the movie is good. Like I like that scene with her and him, but I just feel like the wind is taken out of that ending because it's just like, we don't see any of it. It just kind of feels like anticlimactic.
I felt that a little bit, but I did enjoy their last little like cat and mouse game, I guess is what I'd call it. Like she's trying to get him, and he's trying to escape.
It has kind of a Kill Bill vibe to it a little bit, where because the guy that she's been planning her vengeance for the entire movie is just like, oh, it's not gonna do anything for you.
Speaking of nonverbal communication, especially to the audience, there's a sweet moment in that part when like she's zooming in, looking at a guy get destroyed by a bunch of other dudes, Ravagers, and like she's like intently looking to make sure it's not him, and then it's not him, and like it cuts back to her face, and you're like, she was so pissed if that would have been Chris Hemsworth getting killed by random people.
That wasn't.
Oh, my revenge is still on.
That was my biggest gripe, where it's just once that narration started, I kind of felt like the energy fell way down, and it's not bad enough to take the movie down in any significant way because I really did like the ending. But
yeah, the ending's sweet. They were building up to a really good.
I like the ending a lot. My only gripe was just kind of what I took away from it. The story of Furiosa was told very well within the context of the movie. And obviously the ending has a nice connection that leads directly into Fury Road, which is really cool. But I feel like those two weren't 100% in sync. She's going on this vengeance thing and she's like doing it instead of going back to the green place. And so I'm like, so obviously between her getting vengeance and Mad Max Fury Road, that something changes. And easily like 10, 15 years pass in that time, maybe more. And so I'm like, okay, so what happened in that time?
I almost need like one more scene
like
that they brought
one
Charlize
more
Theron back for or something. Like
Yeah,
one
or
little exchange.
Yeah, something that like, okay, well, what inside of her clicked? What at that moment was it that made her go from, I planted Chris Hemsworth a tree.
Or what kept her there for so long?
Yeah, what kept her there for so long? Like, that's the only thing I needed, and...
Like, why does she want to save the milk mothers or whatever, the brides?
Like something.
After that, like what causes that?
Like, just one more moment that like, we'll make even with a nonverbal thing, like we keep saying.
It didn't have to be any big
something that
thing.
makes us like, you know what, I do have to stay here and get these people out.
Yeah, it could have even been something with Discount Mad Max if he was like, maybe when she's like, oh, leave with me, if he's like, I can't leave without those women, like that's why I'm here, is I'm trying to,
Yeah, I wouldn't scuzzy though if he did that. I'd have been like, come on, dude.
Well,
I have to save these hot women.
No, I was gonna pitch that maybe like one of them is his girlfriend
or mom.
Mom, yeah,
Or sister.
I was more thinking a more noble connection, not that he.
I just want to go to a sweet place with his grass.
Do you have
with
to be a scuzzball to want to save sex slaves, dude? Like,
no, it's just like like the road warrior archetype. He's like, I can't leave unless I take them.
Yeah, that's honestly my, like, really my only gripe, because by the end of the movie, that's kind of what made it less so its own story and more a little reliant on you seeing Fury Road. Because most of the movie I was like, man, you don't need to have seen Fury Road at all to watch this movie. You get to the ending, I was like, you kind of needed to see Fury Road to kind of, for that ending to click, like arc-wise. If they had given her that final arc moment of choosing to save the girls and that's how it ends, then at least it's like any audience member would get that, oh, that arc was completed and the movie is over. Honestly,
I would also buy not a time jump. I would just buy that Anya Taylor-Joy and Charlize Theron are just the same age in the universe. I would just buy it. I wouldn't care.
Honestly, if they did that, I'd be fine.
If they were just like, oh, and then this leads right into that, I would have been like,
because,
whatever.
I mean, that's one of the like two possible theories that you have between Mel Gibson and Tom Hardy is like that they are just the same character and
they're just the same guy.
I
think to me, it's just they're just the same guy. And Mad Max is freaking 50 years old, and he doesn't age because he just drinks gasoline.
Some people theorize that the rascal kid, from Road Warrior, has grown up in.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
I've never liked that one. I like it in theory. That little goblin kid, though, I don't want him to be Mad Max. He's a little goblin, you know.
Little goblin kid.
The timeline for that would make sense because the discount Mad Max in this movie said that his parents were warriors in the pre-war age. So if someone that is roughly Tom Hardy's age had parents that were alive during the pre-war age, that means that he was probably born sometime early war, if not just after the big war.
Yeah.
Which means that Max, if he is the same character that's in the first Mad Max, would be in his 70s.
Dude, that's fine.
Yeah,
He drinks gasoline. He looks great.
Because of just
Listen, dude, Chris Hemsworth would not be able to keep that body he has in the wasteland. It just doesn't make sense. You can just say
he needs people, dude.
he doesn't need enough people for that. Dude. He doesn't even
awesome.
apply sunscreen. Not gonna get into people got to apply sunscreen in movies.
He got tan, dude.
He was a little tan.
Yeah, he got a little tan.
Chris Hemsworth was really great.
Oh, he was so
he's
great.
amazing.
I
He's one of the
loved
best
his
parts of the movie.
phases throughout the movie. Like he starts off white and then he becomes oh god, what did he
got red
call
all over
himself? But he had a name for it was like
Dark
blood
Dementus.
Dark Dementus.
There's Dark Dementus, but when he was red, he was like Blood Dementus or something like that. Like he had different names for himself, the different phases that he had. He's like, you have now made me Dark Dementus.
I don't like that.
He's not even just.
That means I'm not soft.
Chris Hemsworth brings so much depth to the role too. There's like a lot of moments where I'm just like, wow, this person hates their life.
Yeah.
Like this person is affected by the apocalypse. Like everyone else kind of loves it, and like this person's like a real person suffering in the.
What I find very interesting about him is that his backstory is super similar to Max's. Like if you while he in the final
he
scene,
lost his family.
he's like, I lost my family, and so it forces you to think about like what tips someone over to becoming that versus what tips someone over to becoming like Max, who tries to help people when he can, even though he pretends to not like it at first.
It's the anti-Mad Max.
Yeah, like they don't draw a direct parallel to it because if they were like a weaker writer would have had that character meet Max and then be like, we have the same backstory, bro, but I didn't go the dark path. They just like invite that comparison.
Well, not too different, you and I.
Yeah.
I noticed the digital effects more this time around than I did in Fury Road.
Yeah.
I think they just had more in general.
It's just
They had more in general. I mean, George Miller is 79 years old, so the fact that most of it still looks really good is like, I'm not even complaining.
They were doing a lot of stitching also. I think that's also part of it is they were stitching a lot of effects into the same shot to make it look like one shot, but it wasn't really one shot.
Yeah, or like some things were sped up. Like it starts, and I was like, that's
a lot of things were sped up, and it was really intentional, clearly, because it's like,
I think I don't mind a lot of that stuff because it adds to the
movie.
Weird stylistic. I like when the movie started, there was like a weird shutter, like I don't know if the shot was sped up or if it was just a shutter speed thing, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that like George Miller's just completely fine playing with that, and it's an intentional. And honestly, I couldn't care less if the effects are not great or if and they are for the most part the effects are very solid, but even if they weren't, like the action set pieces, like the stuff that's supposed to be good is good, so I wouldn't have cared if there was like even more things to have.
Yeah, you notice bad effects in bad movies.
Yeah,
you know, because you're being
nitpicky.
Nitpicky because you're not enjoying yourself as much as you could.
Yeah.
Like there's CGI moments in Fury Road that are like,
yeah.
But because Fury Road is so good, I don't even remember what those moments are. Like I can't picture them.
Or like the day for night in the movies, it is literally like the most comical example of like they just kind of make it blue. and it's nighttime now.
And they own it. They own it. They're like, that's it.
That's what
that's
nighttime
what
looks like.
that's what nighttime looks like in
Yeah.
the wasteland. That's
Yeah.
it.
That's what it looks like.
George
decided.
Miller is 80 years old. Do you think he is going to go through the process of lighting a nighttime scene? No.
So I'll agree with for the most part, I'll agree with your guys' complaints. Like, I definitely have that same sort. It doesn't affect
Sam
mine.
Slade has his own third unique
I have a
complaint.
third. It's a little one. It's a really small nitpick, and it's kind of stupid. But we were like praising this movie for like being different than Fury Road, right? And like the action sequences being different. There was something I wanted to come back that I didn't feel like came back that much, was the music. The music is like really subdued in this one. There's not a whole lot of like boom, 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 like really bombastic music.
I think I'm fine with that for the most
I'm
part.
also fine with it. I think I wasn't like, oh man, this score sucks. I was just kind of like literally leading
most
up to
of the
watching this
themes-
movie, I was like, I can't wait to hear more Mad Max
Most
music.
of the themes are like, I actually, a complaint, this isn't a complaint because it didn't bother me, but most of the themes and like music in the movie is almost just reused Mad Max music.
It's just a little bit of Mad Max Fury Road, but like not that much music in it. I was hoping they were gonna do a new score that was gonna be awesome music
Yeah.
again, like the first one.
I get that.
Not a huge deal. It wasn't like they did a bad job with the score.
No, it serviced itself.
Especially with the trailer, the most recent trailer, having that sweet rendition of Man Who Stole the World.
Right,
But they
yeah.
made it sound like Mad Max.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
if that's in the movie, that's awesome.
Yeah.
If that's like a through line through the movie, but it wasn't in it, just, it's a little nitpick, but by the end of it, I was thinking about it. I was like, wow, they really
get you, dude.
are they ever gonna bring in that score like full swing at least, But they don't.
Yeah.
That's it.
Imagine if we had that full-blown war sequence and you had Guitar Guy there coming up
They
with
have
a
one
new
cameo of Guitar Guy in the war montage when the narrator's explaining the climax of the movie happening off camera.
Oh,
I
that's
just
it.
say
Go see
it.
the
I don't
movie.
have anything else to say.
Positive score.
That's a
So
positive
go,
score.
Go see the movie.
It's my favorite Mad Max movie that's come out in the last 9 years.
Yeah.
Go see the Fallout show on Amazon Prime if you enjoyed Mad Max post-apocalypse.
Doom Part 2 now on Max. Go see it.
Oh
It's,
yeah, Dune Part 2. There's also desert in that. We just go down. Dune Part 2. There's sand in that, and
There's
there's
sand in that.
this
There's
one.
lots of, and there's lots of big bombs in that.
Yeah,
movie,
lots of
too.
big bombs.
That is just
Yeah.
like Furiosa.
I just want one or two sunscreen movies, a movie, for if they're gonna have a
You
big
have
sand
this
desert thing.
insane,
There's one or two.
insane obsession with
It's just
this.
every time I'm
It's
just like,
because
how are these
sunscreen
people
is such
not?
a big part of his life.
It is
dude.
my life, dude. It is my life.
Sam Slade cannot walk outside without turning into bacon.
I cook just for me. Just like if I'm watching a movie where everyone's outside in the desert, just someone should be
The
applying.
character that is applying is always the loser American tourist that has a sunburn already.
I know. Get a cool guy applying it. Cool guys apply too. It's cool to not get sun cancer. It's cool.
You see Mad Max 5 and it just starts with him.
You can, dude. You get the spray.
Gotta make sure you get behind
Spray's
the-
cool. Spray's cool.
Very important.
Although spray, that gives you cancer too. The spray.
I don't use the spray.